Scheduled for approximately 1 hour. The presentation portion will be 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute question and answer session. I'll be back in a couple minutes so we can begin as scheduled. Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Erin Daly, and on behalf of Everbridge, I'm excited to present our Expert Insights webinar, From Super Bowl to Superstorm, Managing Communication in America's Most Interesting City. In this webinar, our presenters will review incidents, large event, and weather management in the city of New Orleans, including communications best practices. After the session, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A session with our speakers. As a reminder, you can submit your questions at any time during the webinar. You may send your questions by typing in the open text field in the questions panel and sending your question to all panelists. If time runs out before your question is asked, we'll try to follow up with you after the webinar has ended. Links to the recording of the webinar and slides from today's presentation will be available on our blog within a few days of today's session. You can also look for a link to the recording for all of our webinars on everbridge.com under our resources section. If you're on Twitter, we encourage you to take a moment to follow us at @Everbridge and use the webinar hashtag #Everbridge to share snippets of insight throughout our program with your followers. We'll even try and retweet some of your comments. And now I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. Paul J. Reeve is the Logistics Chief for the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. Chief Reeve is responsible for all logistical operations for the City of New Orleans Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. Chief Reeve has over 20 years of logistical experience, with the last 4 years at the City of New Orleans Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. Before his employment with the city, he served 20 years with the Louisiana Army National Guard, retiring at the rank of First Sergeant. He is currently pursuing his MBA at Tulane University. Paul is a native of New Orleans and currently resides in Slidell, Louisiana. He volunteers with Special Olympics and Slidell Youth Recreation Program and is a father of 3. Leah, a junior at Southeastern Louisiana University, Tristan, a freshman at Slidell High School, and Madeline, a kindergarten student at Walker Elementary. After Chief Reeve's presentation, we'll be hearing from Claudia Dent, Vice President of Product Management at Everbridge. Claudia brings many years of experience in the technology industry, including executive positions in product management, marketing, business development, and general management in companies ranging from startups to large global enterprises. We're excited and honored to have both of our speakers with us today. And now I would like to turn it over to our first presenter. Paul, you may begin.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Paul Reeve. As she said, I'm with the City of New Orleans. We were actually using Everbridge this morning for some weather events we had, so forgive me if we do get pulled aside to do something. I'm going to start with the first slide. Basically, we talked about From Super Bowl to Superstorm and about NOLA. 350,000 year-round residents. We have a population that can more than double during large events and festivals, and as you know, New Orleans is a event-driven city, so we pretty much do these things either every week or every other week. When you throw in Super Bowl and other major events that we get every couple of years, we definitely use our Everbridge system. Our significant population for elderly and our mobility impaired citizens, we have special needs shelters. We actually utilize those during Hurricane Isaac. We actually send out an Everbridge alert to every one of those citizens, let them know we're on our way to pick them up, to bring them to those special needs shelters. It's one of the things that we provide here in the city. Our Everbridge system is used daily by fire and EMS. Police department is scheduled to come on board as well in the near future. They're working out some of their kinks from their side. We use both internal and external messaging. We use internal messaging on a regular basis, and we also try to utilize it also when our city server goes down. We utilize the internal messaging on a text message basis and let people know if they're not receiving their emails, they can go ahead and send that to us, and we can get that taken care of. Our fire and EMS departments, fire currently has the following groups. A working fire is basically a fire alarm 1, and then we escalate to 2, 3, 4, and 5 alarms based off how many companies we need to fight that fire, along with our hazmat levels of levels 1 and 2. We send out alerts whenever there's injured firemen. to specific platoons, especially during emergency events. We'll recall the platoons that are not on. Fatality and Fire Command, unusual events is one that we have gotten a lot of lately due to the Boston Marathon bombings. All our bombing, any kind of bomb threats or unattended or suspicious packaging goes under unusual events. And then our CAP, which is our Citizens Assisted Evacuation Program, is one of our largest one we use, where the fire department actually manages that program. And we are scheduled to actually evacuate up to 30,000 residents from the city if need be during an emergency hurricane. And that's one of our major department groups we use amongst Everbridge. Our EMS has the following groups. EMS All, we have a Swiftwater Rescue Tactical, our USAR Search and Rescue, boat teams, communications, and our Honor Guard. Typically, EMS sends all of their medical messaging out through Everbridge, and it's a great tool for them that they use to capture their volume. My particular office at Emergency Preparedness, we use currently the following groups, levels 1, 2, and 3, level 1 being the highest EOC activation, and that's when it's a full staff of over 100 personnel come into this office, down to a level 3, which is basically about 20-25 personnel. Our mayor executive staff is also on our Everbridge alert system, so that if we want to just alert the executive staff and not involve the entire city payroll, we can send that through them. Our EOC staff, we use that every Monday for our duty officers to alert who's on duty, who's coming off of duty. It's one of our tools we use. We use the boil water alerts on a regular basis. When we like this tool because we can actually narrow the boil water alerts externally to all our citizens, either by zip, neighborhoods, geographical. It's a great tool for us that we use. We can actually do it citywide, Riverside, East Bank, or West Bank, or both. For Super Bowl, fortunately, we did not have to send out any external messaging during Super Bowl, but we did use the internal alerts for traffic controls and other related issues in and around Super Bowl. For Mardi Gras, is all our EMS calls go through Everbridge, and this is a good way of the way we can track on a daily basis how many medical calls we get by using Everbridge, because it actually puts out a spreadsheet for us, tells us what all the calls are, and we can segregate them and see where our most popular areas are getting the medical roll calls. We can shift ambulatory personnel over to that area if need be. We just finished up the Jazz and Heritage Festival. We did not have to send out any emergency alerts outside of the weather-related alerts, because we did have some weather-related issues. Fest goers who actually signed up for Everbridge would get the weather alerts while they were there, whether they should, vacate the area or prepare to take cover. It was a very good tool for us. It's one of the fastest ways we can get the word out to those people out there, along with all our workers had that as well that were out there. For Hurricane Isaac, when we activated our EOC, first thing we did was we sent out Everbridge alert to all our level 3 activation, and then within 24 hours we went to a level 1 activation at that point. We used Everbridge exclusively for all our flooding, which is one of our biggest concerns, is the flooded streets, and we put that out, and we actually have a spreadsheet with that as well. As far as our best practices, the mobile app is one of our best features we actually use. It's a user-friendly app. We use it on our Androids. It's a great program. It's very easy to manipulate. We use a geo-targeting, as I said earlier, to send via zip or geographical or citywide. Everbridge offers a 24-hour help desk, and it's very easy of use. After 1 4-hour block of instruction, we were proficient in sending out our messages. And our future vision, are you ready? At this point, if anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
So just as a reminder, you can submit questions through the interface. However, we will answer those at the very end. So just submit questions to all panelists. And now, turn it over to Claudia Dent.
Well, I want to just thank Paul for that great overview of New Orleans and how they're leveraging Everbridge. We're going to carry through on that whole theme of are you ready, and look in a little bit under the covers of Everbridge system and things that you should consider in regards to being ready for any kind of emergencies. Now, during the course of an event, it's really important that communications are effective. And there's a number of reasons, right? It's really, and the most important is around really protecting lives, whether those are citizens or your employees, and being able to respond and mobilize people appropriately. And this enables you to be prepared to respond to any unplanned events, travel, weather, etc. So we're going to again look in a little bit more detail here. So when we think about effective communications, there's a lot of challenges to that, particularly in the event of an emergency, right? It's a lot easier to make errors if you're under duress, if you don't have the right contacts lined up, and you're at the last minute trying to figure out, do you have the right contact list? It's also, difficult if you don't have processes set up ahead of time. And the other really big challenge that many of our customers, have faced in the past is this whole notion of having limited access to frontline intelligence, having access to, the best situational awareness possible. Likewise, for the delivery, there's challenges, but there's also challenges on the responder side. It's very difficult to understand, have the messages really been received? Have the right teams been organized and motivated for a response? Are my messages clear? How do I really know? Are we really reaching the right people? And I think at the end of the day, if you want to actually prove that, can you produce any reports or audits that actually say, yes, we contacted, X thousands of citizens, here was the response rate, etc. So with the Everbridge solution, our goal is really to enable you to conquer those challenges. And again, it's looking at two halves of that problem. The first is around delivery and providing you with smart delivery. And there's two key elements of that. Being able to communicate really quickly, but having all the right intelligence to ensure that your messages are appropriate, fast, clear, etc. Likewise, ensuring that you're really getting and deriving all the responses that you need from your constituents, whether that's citizens or employees. And we do that through targeting the individual and ensuring that you have contact confirmation. But we take that a step further, too, because it's not just about a one-way communication. It's really about providing two-way mobile communication as well and getting up-to-date information from your constituents on what's happening on the front lines. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the first thing is all around automation and speed. If you're really going to be, quote-unquote, ready, like Paul talked about, the thing that you have to think about is, how can I have a set of messages and templates ready to go that are pre-populated with a clear and concise message, who needs to be contacted, and how you want to contact them. And Everbridge enables you to do that through a set of predetermined templates, but also being able to pull them up really quickly and provide a one-click sending capability in the event of an emergency. So these are, all important things around enabling your preparedness. The next key element is really providing visual intelligence. And Paul mentioned this when he was talking about the ability to leverage map-based contacts. And this enables you to really increase your accuracy because you can target a particular zip code, a street address, a radius from a particular point, or a custom shape. You can also provide alerts that are map-based and that are coming from severe weather alerts that are very specific and targeted for particular areas. Whether that's tornadoes or hurricanes, thunderstorms, lightning, hail, blizzards, etc. We provide over 100 different weather alerts and map-based tracking of those weather alerts. We also provide social intelligence, and again, this goes back to this whole notion of the best situational awareness of what's happening in the front lines. And there's two dimensions to that. One, there's social media, and that's the ability to understand, from the perspective of people using Twitter on the ground, what are they saying about a particular event? Oftentimes they're sharing pictures that would be difficult for you to have access to because they're seeing things as they're happening. And we enable you to set up filters and easily sort through and just surface the social media Twitter feeds and tweets that are most relevant to a particular situation. Because there's no way you could be watching the millions of Twitter feeds and tweets coming. You want to be able to just see what's most important for a particular event. The second dimension is all around being able to communicate with your constituents via our mobile member application. So not only can you send them emergency notifications, asking them questions around are they safe, are they okay, please evacuate, etc., but you can also get responses back from them that enable you to understand what's happening on the ground. So if they're in the event of a fire, for example, you can get a on-the-spot view of how fast is that fire spreading, what's the damage assessment, etc. So let me just share with you a few real live scenarios here of how Everbridge can be leveraged. This headline was taken from CNN on Monday afternoon. And it was really all about the tornadoes, and we're not done yet. And unfortunately, with weather, it feels like we're really never going to be done. There's always going to be looming weather events, etc. And sadly enough, later that day, of course, there was the devastating tornadoes in Oklahoma. Well, this is a screenshot of the Everbridge solution, which surfaced the specifics of that tornado watch and enabled our customers to communicate with their citizens on where that tornado watch was specifically, and really make sure that everyone was prepared as quickly as possible. So this goes along with our, over our 100 weather alerts, watches, warnings, etc., and note the specific polygons that really show the targeted areas for those, for that tornado event. Another example here is Hurricane Sandy. This is a set of polygons that are talking about all the high wind warning. And notice that the red dots in the background are all the contacts and constituents. So you can leverage those polygons to automatically select contacts and send warnings without any intervention from you whatsoever, so that those warnings are sent out automatically to to the vast number of your citizens or employees that may be affected by a particular weather event. And I think it's also important to note that preparedness is not always around being prepared for communications before an event. When an event occurs, it's really about what happens before, the preparation that's required, etc., during and after the cleanup, and enabling you to organize your communications around an event and those phases is also important as well. And Everbridge enables you to really look at an event from a full cycle of before, during, and after. Just a couple other examples from a situational intelligence perspective. This is all around Hurricane Sandy, and this was happening after the hurricane. As you remember, it became really difficult for people to get gas because everything was shut down at that point in time, and a lot of gas stations were closed, supplies couldn't get through, etc. So a lot of hospitals in the area and other emergency personnel had trouble finding gas stations that were open. So being able to, on the spot, leverage situational intelligence to understand where's a gas station that's open, which one might be closed, so that you could communicate with emergency personnel to ensure that they could reach who they needed to reach in a timely fashion is really critical. And again, so this was days after the actual event, but there were still a lot of struggles around really enabling people to conduct business as they needed to. And the situational intelligence enabled our customers to really understand what was happening on the ground. Likewise, after the event, getting a instant reports on what some of the damage assessment was. So being able to see these kinds of pictures and understand on the ground what's really happening. And clearly that tree and the wires is incredibly dangerous, and making sure that that's communicated to emergency personnel is also really important. So this is the way in which you can leverage not only effective communications in preparing people and communicating with people during an event, but you're also really leveraging all the information that's coming from the ground itself, whether that's from social media or from your own citizens and employees who are communicating with you leveraging our mobile application. So one of the things that Paul mentioned was the fact that they really leveraged our mobile application to communicate on the ground, because it's incredibly effective on the go. You don't have to lug a laptop around, etc., or have access to internet. You can really drive emergency notifications right from your mobile phone. You have all the same access to those templates that we talked about earlier that enable you to effectively communicate with people using predefined messages, or you can obviously create a message on the fly if something happens that is unimaginable, etc. So you can also do that from a geographic perspective on your smartphone. So it really gives you a lot of vehicles in terms of quickly communicating with your constituents. The second piece of this is really assuring that you're targeting the individual and that you're reaching the people that need to be reached during the event of an emergency. And with Everbridge, our whole philosophy is around targeting the individual. Everyone has preferences on how they prefer to be communicated with. So we enable you to let your contacts choose their personal preferences. So if Alan would prefer to get contacted on his cell phone, Everbridge will call Alan on his cell phone first, but Sue wants to be notified on her work phone. So basically, we go down all of these paths until we actually reach the individual. I think it's also important here to talk about the importance of providing multimodality in reaching out to people, because there are events where certain communication vehicles won't work. A great example is during Hurricane Sandy, landlines went down really quickly. So the next vehicle of communication was mobile or SMS or email. Likewise, during the Boston Marathon event, the explosion, immediately after the explosion, the cell phones were just incredibly busy, and you could not get cell phone traffic through, but you could get SMS text messages. So we go through a set of attempts and we keep trying to reach people until we reach them. And at the end of a certain cycle, we can always rebroadcast, and we keep doing that until we've confirmed that everyone has received the message that they should receive. And we talked earlier about the two-way mobile communications. This is an example of our mobile member application where you can actually communicate with citizens or employees. You can send them through the mobile app. This is another way to reach people in the event of cell voice traffic being not available. The mobile app is great, so you can send your constituents messages. They can send responses, and they can not only send responses to the messages like a polling response, but they can also share details and photos of what's happening on the ground, which is key. And you can also send them documents and pictures in reverse. So it's a two-way communication pipeline that really enables you to effectively get information on the front line. So really, those are the two key elements: the ability to have all the speed and intelligence that you need in preparing for communications, and then on the other half, really assuring that people are going to respond and receive the messages that you're sending, and that you're getting the maximum use, out of that delivery system. The Everbridge platform, sits on a unified data management system. We have 100% redundancy, and we also leverage a lot of scalability in terms of our elastic infrastructure. During the course of Hurricane Sandy, as an example, we sent well over 12 million messages during the course of a few days, and leveraging all of that of the cloud capacity, et cetera. Just a quick highlight, we do provide a suite of products. Most of what we've talked about today and what Paul referenced, it was all about mass notification, so the ability to send and manage notifications across geographies or enterprises. We also have an incident management solution, which enables you to manage incidents with automated rules. Our interactive visibility is what drives that social intelligence and mobile intelligence, and provides all that map-based contact and the most situational awareness, including weather, et cetera. And then finally, we complement all of this with our mobile solution, which is leveraged by most of our customers, and Paul mentioned as well. So I think it's important to note that we spent a brief moment here, going over the solution at a high level. We could spend days talking about all the capabilities and the ways in which our customers are leveraging our solution. We do have over 1,500 customers across many different verticals. So we would invite you to reach out to us and give us the opportunity to talk specifically about your concerns and use cases, and how to enable you to best be prepared for any emergencies that may arise.
Great, thank you. So at this point, we're going to open it up to questions from our audience. And just as a reminder, you may submit your questions by typing a question into the open text field in the questions panel on your screen and submitting to all panelists. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. So our first question is, I think for both Paul and Claudia, about how does the geo-targeting work? And specifically for Paul, was that used for the boil water alerts?
Well, our geo-targeting is actually utilized by our GIS department here, and we have actually plugged in mapping based off of zip codes and geographical and neighborhoods into the system already, so that all we need to do is do like an overlay cover or just type in a particular zip code, and the map will actually cover that entire area. And then everyone that's signed up in that entire area that we've covered will automatically get the alert.
Yeah, that's an excellent description. Basically, Everbridge enables you to upload any number of contacts, millions of contacts if necessary, and we automatically geocode those contacts based on their address. So we assign a latitude, longitude, and then all those contacts appear as dots in the map. And you can have predefined shapes that that represent zip codes or specific neighborhoods, or you can leverage shapes that you draw on the fly or that come from our weather alerts. And any contacts that fall within those shapes can easily be contacted either automatically through different rules and alerts that you've set up before or on the fly.
Great, excellent. There's quite a few questions coming in actually about GIS mapping and groups. So the next one is talking about what if I want to notify people in a certain geographical area, but only those belonging to a certain group?
Yeah, so the question around being able to target certain groups, we enable you to do that very easily with filters. So for example, you may have both citizens and employees represented on your map, and you may want to communicate just with employees to get them to mobilize to a certain area or take certain actions, and that's very easy. You just can filter by groups. You can slice and dice those groups any way that you want. We enable you to define a virtually unlimited set of attributes. So if you wanted to have attributes around certain skill sets, so that you targeted, medical personnel, et cetera, with certain skills, you can do that. Really, virtually any way you want to slice and dice those attributes.
Great, thank you. So this question is for Paul. Essentially, there's a couple questions about getting contacts to opt in. So the first one is, how do you get residents to opt in for messages like for Jazz Fest? And then I think there was a follow-up question about how you capture internal contacts in the system as well.
Okay, as far as the first one goes, we have a pretty good public campaign as far as our NOLA Ready program, signing up, and we do a lot of public outreach, and and that's the best way to get people to sign up. And once they're signed up, it's pretty easy to be navigable for those people that sign up for what they want, and then once they're in, they'll start getting their messages regularly, or they may get too many messages, so they'll call and say, I don't want this, I just want that, and we can easily go in there and take care of that for them. What was the second question?
It was for so not only just residents, but also for your internal groups. How do you sign internal contacts up for groups?
Basically, it starts with who actually works like here for emergency operations. So if every department that's assigned in our emergency operations center, we automatically will put them in our internal grouping. For any other departments or the mayor's executive staff, we do all the internal. We go ahead and use that. We use our Excel spreadsheet, and we just download it into the system and put them in the groups that we think that they need to be in. For example, our city council members, will send that to them. They will send a list back on which members of their staff they think needs to be on this group or this other group. We let them tailor it to an extent, but we do all the actual downloading and putting it in.
Great, thank you. So we have a question coming in about contact paths, and specifically, in weather events or events like the Boston bombing, where certain paths might be overloaded, an example of cell phones, or power might be out. How does the system approach reaching contacts when certain paths are compromised?
Right. So that's one of the key elements of the Everbridge solution, is that for every person, whether you load their contact information through an Excel spreadsheet or whether it comes into the opt-in portal, as Paul was talking about, people are encouraged to provide more than one contact path. You know, a home phone, a SMS, an email, a work phone, etc. So basically, we cycle through all of those paths in the sequence that you either dictate or the member dictates, and until we reach that person, we keep trying. So if you know, the cell phone doesn't come through, we move to you know, whatever's next on that contact delivery path, whether it's SMS, etc., or the mobile member application, etc.
Great, thank you. So we actually had a question come in through Twitter for Paul. How do you set up groups using both the group and attribute features for your notification of EOC staff and mayor staff?
Well, we set up our groups based off of how our departments are set up. So our mayor executive staff may be all our department heads, and the mayor's staff itself, they will be grouped into one. We'll put them into one group. We already have their point of contact information, as what he was saying. We have their cell phone, their business phone, and email address, text messaging. We put all that into that particular group, and it goes into that one spot. We can also touch base with the departments and ask them who they want in their groups. Some people may want just their supervisors within that group, and we can build as many groups as we need, or we can tailor it to however you want it.
Great, thank you. So our next question is for Claudia. Can you talk about what resources are required to build situational intelligence in terms of monitoring incoming social media feeds like Twitter?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So it's really straightforward to set up Twitter feeds within the Everbridge universe. Basically, what you're doing is you're setting up a set of criteria, whether that's keywords or hashtags that you want to follow, and you can also limit those by geography as well. So you can say, I want to, you know, get alerts on anything having to do with Hurricane Sandy, you know, within this 50-mile radius. So that enables you not to see all the other traffic, like what someone had for breakfast or the trick their dog is doing, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So what we do for you once you set that, you know, feed up is we just surface those tweets that are relevant, and we also alert if there's a certain number of those, and you define how you want those alerts to work. So once there's an alert, you can define who gets communicated regarding that, and you know, or you can just leverage the universe to visualize those tweets coming in. So you've got a number of options there.
Great, thank you. So this one is for Paul. Particularly when you're communicating to residents around a large event or a festival where people are coming in from out of the area, what do you do with those contacts after the event? Do you remove them from the system? How do you manage sending out messages to people who might be visitors?
We actually do not eliminate them. You know, if they sign up, they're going to be signing up externally for all National Weather Service alerts, so that no matter what area they go in, if it's whether it's in New Orleans or Mobile or Chicago, if they're signed up for Everbridge, they're going to get a weather alert for that particular area where they're at. We did not control it from that standpoint.
Great, thanks. And this one is for Claudia. Is there a maximum number of contact attempts that the system will allow, and how do you manage setting it for that maximum number of attempts? And then maybe following your response, Paul could speak to what you do in your particular situation,
yes.
And how many attempts you make.
Yeah, so it's really virtually unlimited because you can define. So first of all, we support, you know, close to 20 different delivery paths and methods. That includes cell phones, SMS, email, work phones, fax, pagers, the mobile recipient application, et cetera. So all of those are valid contact paths. And you can set up a set of, more than one cycle as well. So, from that perspective, it's pretty much, unlimited.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, depending on the event, I mean, if it's a boil water notice, for example, and it's going to be a 24-hour boil and water notice, we'll continue that cycle for 24 hours until we get a response from our people who have signed up, and then if the boil water notice is lifted at that point, we'll send out another message at that point saying that it's been lifted, and we'll continue to send that out for a couple hours until we get all responses on that one as well. But it's kind of dictated to the mission itself.
Yeah, I think another point to add here is that as you repeat these broadcasts, you don't have to send them to the people who have already confirmed, and the system handles that automatically. So you can send a follow-on broadcast to only those who have not confirmed yet. So that way people aren't getting too many messages, right? They're not going to be totally haunted. Once they confirm, once we know they're heard, we cease and desist.
Great. That's actually a great segue into our next question, which is for Paul. When you have a large weather event like Hurricane Isaac, what's the recommended frequency for sending out messages to residents during the event and after?
Well, you got to remember too, during events such as that, National Weather Service is going to be sending out its regular messaging as well. So we don't want to start piling on top of what they're already sending out. But if it's any kind of major change to any kind of weather system or change within the city as far as a flooded streets, power outage, stuff like that, we'll send those out immediately. Really don't have a timetable on, well, we're going to send this out every 6 hours. But once we do get a pattern, we stick with a pattern, because then the residents or the people who are signed up or start expecting a message every 6 hours. We'll do one every 6 hours if it's got some pertinent information in it. But normally, with Hurricane Isaac, especially as far as the weather messaging, National Weather Service was right on target, sending it out exactly when it needed to be sent. We were just following up with some flooded streets, power outages, and the like such as that.
Mm-hmm. And just to expand on that, I'm assuming that might change if you had to send specific notices to residents.
Yeah, I mean, during Isaac, for people who did not know, Isaac was a very slow-moving storm. So, of course, we send the first message out to say that it's this much wind speed, it's at this location. Well, 3 hours later, it may not have moved that much. So do we want to send another message out at that point saying the exact same information that the hurricane really hasn't moved, or do we start looking at a different area where we're going to go with, hey, it's dumping this amount of rain, so be prepared for flooding in these areas due to the fact the storm is not moving, but just potential rainfall.
Great, thank you. So we have time for just a few more questions. I think the first two are probably for Claudia. So can you speak to the platform that the mobile apps are available on?
Yeah, absolutely. So the mobile recipient application is available on smartphones, Android, and iOS-based devices. The mobile manager application is available on the same, but we also have a mobile URL that really enables you to reach that mobile URL from any device that has a browser. So, again, kind of virtually unlimited.
Great. And then the next question was, I think we get this on every webinar, can you speak to the international capabilities of the system?
Yeah, so that's one of the key strengths of the Everbridge system is that we have a capability that's called globally local. And that enables you to send notifications around the world, and we leverage local caller IDs for both voice calls and SMS as well. And we leverage cloud-based services around the world that give us local POPs to ensure the most efficient delivery possible. So that's one aspect, is the delivery of messages, which is very robust for global companies. The other key element of that is being able to store data locally if that's necessary for privacy reasons in countries like, that are part of Europe, et cetera. We also support that capability.
Great. And then the last question is for Paul. There were quite a few questions that came in just asking more about the internal communications that are sent out, if those are secure from the media, the difference between, say, communication that you would send to internal groups versus residents, and just the types and frequency of internal communications that are sent out. So if you could just speak to those in general.
Yeah, our internal grouping is not shared publicly. It's very secure. Most of our internal messaging from this office is our standard messaging. It's not our emergency messaging because it's a lot easier for us to send a message out to specific groups within our internal messaging to actually go find an email and go one by one for each name of individuals we're looking for, and we may leave someone off or unintentionally add somebody on that we're not wanting to. So I use the standard messaging on a regular basis to send, and I know it's going to get there, and I can also look back and look at the history to see who actually received it, whereas in an email, sometimes you don't know if they actually got the message or not.
Great, excellent. So on that, I think we've run out of time for questions. Thank you so much, Chief Reeve and Claudia, for a great session, and to all of our attendees who were able to join us today. If you missed any part of the webinar, be sure to look for the slides on blog.everbridge.com, and you'll receive an email with a link to the recording in the coming days. If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us on Twitter at Everbridge and join our group on LinkedIn, Everbridge Incident Management and Emergency Notification Professionals. For those of you interested in seeing a demo of the new Everbridge system, please visit everbridge.com/contact-us to request a demo. And thank you all once again for your participation in today's presentation on Super Bowl to Superstorm, Managing Communication in America's Most Interesting Cities. We hope to see you online again soon. Thank you so much and have a great day.